Governor, I want to follow up on some of the conversation you had
important
with
part.
Senator Cantwell on cleanup, and you're inheriting the cleanup of the legacy waste from the entire Cold War. At Los Alamos, for example, it will take about $4 billion over the next few decades to finish that effort. That effort's not as technically complicated, I think, as the Hanford site, but it requires resources. I think if the budget is flat, you'll have your hands full on this front. But we've heard about a potential hiring freeze. I have an article this morning from The Hill talking about rolling substantial portions of the DOE budget back to 2008 levels. How are you, and this is a Trump transition team article, how are you going to meet DOE's commitments to states like New Mexico, to states like Washington, who have consent agreements on these cleanup efforts, if we have a dramatically smaller DOE budget?
Yes, sir. Senator, over the 14 years, well, actually, I'll even expand it a little bit. Over the 30 years that I was either a state representative, an appropriator, I was an agency head for 8 years, and then I was the governor of 14 years, a little bit of light gov in there as well. We had budgets that did this. They went up and they went down. We had some really tough budgets in the state of Texas in 1985 and 1987 in particular. I was an appropriator during that period of time. As an agency head, I got to deal with what I was given. I obviously went over and negotiated as good and as hard as I could. And then as the governor of the state, it wasn't always blue skies and smooth sailing. In 2003, we showed up with a $10 billion budget shortfall in our state. So I've had this experience of dealing with budget shortfalls. I've obviously been blessed with some times when we had, I'm not sure I ever ran into a time when somebody said you got all the money you ever need. But my history is I know how to manage, I know how to prioritize, and I will make that commitment to you, Senator, is that managing and prioritizing that budget inside the agency will be very high for me, and I hope it gives some comfort that you know, this is not my first rodeo when it comes to dealing with budget shortfalls.
Related to that, Governor, and I want to thank you for your comments on that, I also want to ask you about the waste isolation pilot plant, the WIPP facility in Carlsbad, New Mexico. You may know that WIPP is the nation's only deep geologic repository for transuranic waste from the weapons program, and it's a very important part of the cleanup effort. WIPP was closed for nearly 3 years as a result of 2 serious accidents. We just reopened it this last month. The investigations into those incidents cited lack of proper management and oversight as one of the root causes. I want to ask you to assure me, but more importantly, to assure the people of New Mexico that the safe operation and proper maintenance of WIPP will be a budget priority and also a management priority.
Sure. Senator, I hope, again, that my history of managing a rather large entity, and I'm not going to sit here in front of you and tell you we got everything right every day in the state of Texas, but by and large, it was a very well-managed place. When there were mistakes made, I held people accountable because the people of the state of Texas were holding me accountable. I consider my accountability not only be to this administration, to this committee, to this Congress, but also to the people of this country and to the people of your state. I want my neighbors in New Mexico, or our farmer neighbors in New Mexico, to know that there is a Secretary of Energy who not only will come to that site and to hear their concerns, whether they're employees of WIPP or whether they're people who live around the communities there, that every reasonable, every thoughtful, effort will be made to make sure that not only does that site stay open because of the powerful economic impact that it has on your state, but also that the people who work there are going to be safe. And you've got my commitment to that, sir.
That's exactly what I want to hear, and I very much appreciate your willingness to spend the first few months of your tenure getting to places like the labs and the WIPP facility. I think that means a great deal to the community.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Governor.